Your Excellency, Ban Ki-moon, former Secretary General of the United Nations and head of the GGI, Honorable the Ministers, the Ambassador for the Republic of Korea, distinguished guests and friends. I'd like to welcome His Excellency Ban Ki-moon for the signing of the host country agreement with the Global Green Growth Initiative. I can assure you, Your Excellency, this agreement will not be as controversial as the one you signed earlier. But it did pave the way for reconciliation, and it was a positive step that we took. And so you will be associated with two historic agreements signed in Sri Lanka. Thank you. The Honorable Minister has explained in detail the steps that we are planning to take in regard to green economy and meeting the climate change targets for 2050. We are seriously concerned of the situation on climate change and the actions taken. What has happened so far is insufficient, and the last conference of parties did not achieve the results that we desired. We are facing a double jeopardy, all of us in the low-income countries and the middle-income countries, struggling with economic development and protecting living standards with insufficient funding. So, we are committed to a call for action by the developed countries or to deliver their funding pledges by doubling their funding. Now, this is essential, and we have to go through. I realize that this year is a recession for some of the developed countries, but nevertheless, the targets had not been met earlier. So there has to be a full commitment of how we are going to meet the targets and what is the assistance that is required. The other issue is the need for compensation for the developing countries, where the emissions so far were not the responsibility of our countries. Third issue of how do we address loss and damages. This is not an issue of asking the developed countries to spend a lot of money for the developing countries. Let's work out a sort of let's combine the monies that are needed and then see how we are going to raise it, whether a contribution from the developed countries, promoting investments by firms in the developed countries, in our countries, and what we can raise internally. No one is asking to ask the developed world to completely fund everything that is needed. There has to be a contribution by them, but there has to be a contribution by us. But let's agree on what we have to do. And this is what is worrying us, that last meeting was not successful. Achievements of COP26 has not been fulfilled so far. Glasgow was a crucial turning point. And I must also here record the initiative that was taken by the former Prime Minister of UK, Boris Johnson. But we have not followed up on it at the last conference of parties, and we must ensure that we meet those targets and we come to an agreement at this conference of parties. So Sri Lanka government, I have asked both the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Environment to sound out other developing countries with whom we spoke last time on how we can have a joint action plan, and maybe a meeting of the heads of government of the concerned countries in UAE a day or so prior to the opening of the conference. This is the only way that we can achieve results, and we must go hard on it. There is no halfway house. It has to be, we have to insist that these are our goals, these are our minimum demands. It's either the minimum demands or nothing. It's far better than to call it a day if you are not going to achieve these results. Sri Lanka, as the minister says, is in the process to decrease carbon emissions by 14.5% by 2030 and more thereafter. We are creating the Climate Change Office, operating from the under the President's Secretariat to coordinate all action in regard to climate change. Then we have prepared a Natural Adaptation Plan and the National Environment Action Plan. All of these is being taken as initiative by our government so that we ensure a green economy and a better world by 2050. We are developing the Net Zero 2050 plan that aims for carbon neutrality. We will not increase further energy capacity via coal power. These are the last of the plants we have, and I think by 2050 it won't be functioning. We will phase out the fossil fuel subsidies. We are already doing that, and we have come under attack from the opposition for phasing it out. And we will aim for 70% of renewable energy for electricity generation by 2030. Then I must tell you that there are many initiatives that we will be taking for this period. Firstly, I'll bring a legislation for a new Climate Change Act, which will incorporate the Climate Change Office. New Environment Act to replace the old one, which was enacted in the early 1980s, and one which will cover reforestation, forest cover and tree cover, which is also essential. The last one is, I think, historic for our area, that we want to recognize some of our assets as living entities. So the Knuckles Range, the Horton Plains, the Peak Wilderness, the Singharaja, Mahavalley River and Adams Bridge would be recognized as living entities. We will be the first in the region to do so. And finally, the International Climate Change University. We want to start here as a postgraduate university and a university for training officials in all our regions, in the Indian Ocean, in the Africas, to prepare the world for meeting the climate change goals and a new climate change, a new green economy. Now we are grappling with the issue of a green economy. That's where we want to go. We find that we have the potential, especially on renewable energy. With the help of the Asian Development Bank, we are assessing what our capacity for renewable energy and green hydrogen would be. Some say we'll have an excess capacity of about 30 gigawatts, some say 40, some say 50, but we'd want to have the assessment that will be made by the Asian Development Bank. So we'd like to already then call for investments in this region. This is one area that we can prosper in. Then as it goes on, we have more sources for green energy, an economy that will run on green energy. In regard to our economic base, we are looking at the new technologies which certainly will not be involved with fossil fuel, and to have new manufacturing and service industries based on Industry 4 technology, to modernize our agriculture in accordance, so that we will be moving towards the green economy. But we are going to face difficulties. One is the lack of capacity, and we also need great access to international financing. Then to use the green vision also, be able to financially engineer the debt, the reduction of Sri Lanka's debt by using the green financial instruments, so that we could reduce the present debt load. And our domestic policy will be geared to our climate prosperity plan. So this is the path that Sri Lanka wishes to follow. And I have no doubt that the GGI will help us to achieve this. The agreement we sign tomorrow will be, I presume, the first in the steps that we will take. And I am happy that we have my good friend, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, to launch this initiative and hope you will be visiting here more often to see the progress that we make. Thank you.